People are starting to figure it out. That's why they're going back to balloons.
And majority of all the transmissions we use for our cell phones or quote-unquote satellite TV are all ground towers. They all send transmissions from the ground tower to tower, admittedly at high elevations, and of course we have underground and undersea cables.
Satellites are connected to these towers. And update your script for the iPhone 14 model's emergency satellite, please. And Google Maps uses GPS, Global Positioning System, or otherwise satellite navigation system.
That make up 99.9% of all transmission.
What was that again? Oh right.
99.9.
What is the 0.1% doing? Is it the satellites?
So this just a facade in people's mind that you have little metal boxes flying around giving you all of your data. None of that is real.
Oh my god, I'm calling my brother. That is freaking beautiful! Okay, there you have it. Artemis wow, it's flying right now.
Whether it's the ISS or the rocket launch, the second someone sees it with their own eyes, they think it's real.
This is freaking amazing! Oh, there it is. What the heck happened?
They don't even know what the fuck's going on.
The reason that you can always find a video of a rocket from NASA taking off and then slowly making a U-shaped arc is not because it's going around the ball and going to the other side or going out into space. It's because shortly after these rockets that are funded by your tax dollars take off, they only have a certain amount of time before they crash back to the Earth because they run out of fuel.
Only the case with unreusable parts, like the space shuttle's external tank. If the entire space shuttle collapses into the Bermuda Triangle like Eric Dubé claims, then why does it come back unscathed? Do you expect the shuttle to go vertically, then instantly turn 90 degrees and propel itself into orbit? That's very unrealistic.
It's all made up. So what really happens is they launch them near the ocean, in Texas or in Florida. They will never launch a rocket from the middle of the country. It won't make it to the ocean. It'll crash on dry land.
So why did the Buran launch from Kazakhstan, a country with the coastline to a lake, called the Caspian Sea? Why does the Soyuz also launch from Kazakhstan? Why not St. Petersburg? Whatever you said about launching rockets only near coastlines is a flat-out white lie.
Okay, so NASA has to launch rockets from Texas and Florida because it's right by the water. If they wanted to launch a rocket from Little Rock, Arkansas, it wouldn't even make it to Texarkana.
So when they launch rockets in Cape Canaveral, Florida, or in Houston, we have a problem. Yeah, the problem is you can't get past the firmament.
In 1962, 7 years before they faked the moon landing, Operation Dominic began. A series of 31 missiles were shot straight up into the sky to test how high humans can actually reach. They quickly figured out, not far at all.
It seems that whenever they were shooting these missiles up into the sky, they were actually interacting with different layers of this plasma field or this electromagnetic phenomena, and
More buzzwords. The high-altitude nuclear explosions are the result of nuclear weapons testing, conducted by the USA and the USSR between 1958 and 1962. In these tests, nuclear warheads were launched and deliberately detonated at a high altitude, between 23 kilometers and 540 kilometers. They were deliberately detonated, not an attempt to penetrate dome firmament or anyone's personal dome.
Who knows, maybe there is some kind of firmament, and we're underwater. We could be underwater. Maybe there's water above the firmament and then water down here.
That could possibly be why the sky is blue, because behind it...
No, that's Rayleigh light scattering. If the sky was blue due to this, then it'd get darker and darker the closer you get to sea level. Also, what illuminates this? How high is the magical dome firmament, and why doesn't it collide with anyone's personal dome? In the oceans, it's bright near the surface, but extremely dark near the deepest parts. But in actuality, Earth's atmospheric gradient means the gradient appears to be darker and darker the further higher you go, brighter and brighter the further you go towards sea level. And why do colorful sunsets exist? These pictures are unedited.
People say, well, what's under the flat Earth? Because they're thinking of a disk floating in space. We don't know what's under the flat Earth because the deepest hole is 7.8 miles.
The same sources that say space is real also say that this borehole is kilometers deep. How deep is your magical pancake?
And while they were digging that hole, while they were drilling that hole, they were using ground-penetrating radar to see what they're going to hit next. And they were wrong every step of the way. No more rocks, no more water. They hit rocks, they hit water. Right? They were wrong, wrong, wrong. And then they hit an impenetrable barrier. They tried for years to get through, and they couldn't. And then they gave up. But then somehow, we have a meme that shows us a cross-section of the Earth, the next 4,000 miles. They know exactly what's there. They couldn't get the first 7.8 miles right, but they know the next 4,000. And everyone's seen the meme of the Earth with the molten magnetic core. Another thing that they're laughing at us, because you can't have a molten magnet. Any magnet of any type, you heat it up, and before it melts, it hits the Curie point, and it loses all its magnetism.
Above the Curie point we do not have ferromagnetism. However, we can have a magnetic field above the Curie point. A straight copper wire that has electric current running through it has a magnetic field around it, even though copper is not ferromagnetic. The magnetic field of the Earth is caused by a macroscopic electric current, analogous to the magnetic field generated by a hollow solenoid. There is a bistable electric current at the equator of the Earth and in the molten core that causes the magnetic field of the Earth. The electric current at the equatorial core is self-generated, which is probably why it is bistable. The electrical current reverses direction every few 100,000 years, at times that are chaotically random. So the magnetic dipole reverses every few thousand years as determined by geologists examining rock formations. A ferromagnetic core could not possibly reverse direction every few 100,000 years. So physicists can say with no equivocation that the core of the Earth is not ferromagnetic. So it doesn't matter that the iron is above the Curie point. All the core has to be is fluid and an electrical conductor in order to have a magnetic dipole. The electrical current is caused by the convection currents in the Earth's core that are forced to move in a spiral direction by the Coriolis force. There is no ferromagnetism involved in generating the Earth's magnetic field. The molten iron in the core supports such an electric current because it is an electrical conductor, not because it is ferromagnetic. As you are implying, the molten iron in the core cannot be ferromagnetic because it is above the Curie point. The magnetic field would probably exist if all the iron was replaced by copper at the same temperature. Experimental simulations have been made on a laboratory scale using liquid sodium. Sodium is not ferromagnetic at any temperature. Liquid metals are not ferromagnetic no matter what element they are comprised at. So the metal in these experiments is no way ferromagnetic. Yet quasi-stable magnetic dipoles have been generated in these experiments, analogous to the magnetic dipole of the Earth. Solid iron, solid nickel and solid cobalt are ferromagnetic below their Curie point. However, their ferromagnetism has nothing to do with the Earth's magnetic field. All liquid metals are electrical conductors just like their solid phases. The electrical conductivity has everything to do with the Earth's magnetic field. Thanks, David Rosen.
Have y'all heard about the recent claim from the heliocentric priests? They're saying that the core has stopped spinning and it's now spinning the opposite direction.
This reversing Earth core spin shenanigans were debunked by Astro Kobe,
which is going to cause all this chaos.
Well, this morning we are learning about a shift in the Earth's inner core that sounds like the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster. Scientists say our planet's solid core, which is actually disconnected from the rest of the Earth's layers, may actually have stopped rotating and could even reverse course. What does this mean?
Well, at first it sounds like something from a Hollywood movie.
Right.
The script says, oh my God, the core of the Earth is spinning backwards.
How do they know this? I just want to know, how do they know what the core is doing if they've only been down 8 miles? How is that possible? We've only, as humans, dug down a maximum depth of 8 miles. How do they know what's 3,000 miles down?
With seismology, we keep educating you. You keep ignoring us and spew out your tired talking points.
There was a famous scientist that sent a submarine down and hit the bottom of the ocean and wasn't able to penetrate the bottom of the ocean, as if there was some type of water barrier firmament.
One of the strangest places on the ocean's floor was only just discovered in the 1990s. And 9 Degrees is one of a handful of people to ever see it in person. Without a doubt, one of the most amazing things that I have ever seen in the bottom of the ocean. It was while filming for Blue Planets in the Gulf of Mexico. And I noticed there's something out in the distance. Couldn't tell exactly what, but it looked like a dark band. And as we approached it, the dark band became a donut. I saw this donut. It was black in the center. What the heck is that? And so as we get closer and closer to it, I noticed that the black band had what appeared to be kind of steam over it. And then I looked, and there was water lapping against the shoreline. This band was a ring of mussels. And inside the ring of mussels was a lake. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm already underwater. We went out over the water in this lake and tried to descend in it and bounced off. It was so super saline and dense that the submarine couldn't go down in it. We literally bounced off, and as we bounced off, we sent ripples heading back to the shoreline.
It's because of the firmament.
What is dome firmament or your personal dome made of? If it's glass, can we drill through it? Should be anything. We should be able to drill it. Strange matter, then we all turn into strange matter and will not be able to drill anything.
So they teach us about gravity when we're young kids, because when you're a young kid, you kind of believe everything that you hear. They tell us that gravity was discovered by a guy named Isaac Newton. And by the time he was 23, he had discovered gravity, invented calculus, and trigonometry. Well, I'm telling you right now, none of that happened.
Gravity's just a theory.
You forgot what a scientific theory means.
And an excuse, really. It's real simple. If there's a force strong enough to hold oceans to the planet, there's a force. We should all be stuck to the ground.
We are stuck to the ground. If you jump, you apply a force greater than the gravitational force to yourself. As soon as you leave the ground, no more force is being applied, so your velocity gets smaller until it's zero, then you go towards the ground. Now may I ask you how relative density can push food inside of you?
You know, the force can hold buildings, skyscrapers, tanks, ships to it, but it can't hold a helium balloon. Helium balloon just flies away. Smoke just flies. Everything.
Smoke has a tendency to fly, as it is less pulled by gravity, even though acceleration is the same. This measurement is force of gravity, or in other words, weight. Helium balloons have a tendency to explode near space. The helium inside the balloon exerts buoyancy force on the balloon, causing it to go up.
We should be stuck to the ground like a magnet if there's a force holding oceans to it.
Incredulous man, the mass of the ocean is much greater, so it's pulled harder than air. Quoting Dave Farina, rocks are pulled down harder than water, which is pulled harder than air.
It doesn't make any sense.
Once you look at gravity and you try to prove that it's real, you'll discover there's no proof of it, and that there is only proof of density, buoyancy, and electrostatics.
Define electrostatics, your favorite buzzword. Also, explain the Cavendish experiment without linking me to some crackpot called Miles Mathis.
Electrostatics is a proven thing. We all know that a positive and a negative will attract towards each other. So the Earth has a neutral or negative charge.
If the Earth has a neutral charge, it means it has practically no charge. Does that mean I should stay away from wires, fridges, balloons, or everything that does static electricity?
Everything above it has a positive charge, and it is attracted to it.
Everything that exists is electric. There's not one thing that exists in the entire world that is not electric. It's actually the unifying force that keeps everything here, holds everything together, and everything seeks equilibrium based on that. So everything's trying to find a state of rest based on its electric phenomena or its electric nature within the environment that we exist within. And then when you start to look further into it, you find out that on the smallest scale, electrostatics is significantly stronger than gravity is even claimed to be. Magnitudes greater, 10 to the 36 power to be specific. So everything, simply put, everything that exists is electric. Everything that is falling to the ground or not falling to the ground is seeking equilibrium based on electrostatics.
What? How about plastic? Aren't they insulators? Why don't insulators find their equilibrium too due to electrostatics?
As in the 1950s, even earlier, and it's all been hidden because if humans were allowed free energy, free movement, and able to explore, we would find out what this place is. We'd find out our position in this world. And that's the number one thing. Why are they hiding flat Earth? Why? What's the motive? And the motive is to keep us dumbed down, not knowing who we are, not knowing where we are.
We are in the solar system, here on Earth. There's no extra land. No Antarctic Jew penguins can obtain guns because there aren't any. Alright, cut off here. Most arguments are now about UFOs, which over 90% of them are only spotted in the US. Most can be planes, satellites, rockets, drones or towers or many other objects. And it also leads into government paranoia, which I swerve away from since government paranoia is the foundation for many if not every single conspiracy theory in the world. Doesn't talk about eclipses, Apollo, or anything like that. So I skipped over these political and UFO conspiratorial mindset.
With that said, the only hope for human salvation is to acquire and spread the knowledge of these activities and agendas. Resist, retaliate, and conquer this opposing enemy. The time is now. The time is now. The time is now.
See you in the next video, and thank you and goodbye. Archaic and disproven, dead flat Earth.